How are you doing? Hope you had a great holiday and getting ready for the new year. But we're still in 2021, and there's a lot of exciting things that we wanted to bring you. One of which I've been working on this interview for a while, and I'm bringing you Bob Milner, the director of the Entrepreneurship Center at Sam Houston State University. A lot that we're going to talk about. We're going to cover education. We're going to cover what's going on in business education. We're going to cover what's going on in Sam Houston. Have to say up front that let me make sure I get the wording right here. That I've been talking about for a while, and that we are working on collaborating together for the center resources and maybe some other business stuff. So I want to put that out there for full disclosure. You can check out my LinkedIn for some things I said about that. But I want to get right into this, so I know we have relatively about 30 minutes here. Bob, thank you for joining. And why don't you just start off and you have such an interesting background. Tell us a little bit about you and how you came to the academic world.
Thanks, John. It's good to be with you today. So actually, I'm an entrepreneur. I was in the car business for 20 something years, was a dealer.
Yeah.
My wife and I had some dealerships, and I was also a partner with another guy in a Mercedes dealership. And my wife spent most of her career in the automotive business. And then we're partners in some other businesses, a virtual reality gaming arcade, a gourmet hot dog and sausage catering business. And then we launched a virtual reality STEAM learning program for autistic children when the pandemic hit, which has really been a cool program and a cool project to work on. As I got older in life, I always said when I retired from working full time, I wanted to teach because I felt like I had a lot that I could give back to students that dealt with business and entrepreneurship.
Definitely.
And so I started teaching as an adjunct probably now about 7 years ago, and then joined Sam full-time a little over 3 years ago, teaching entrepreneurship. And just recently, the dean asked me to take over the program, become the director of the program, and also to become the director of our Entrepreneurship Center for Community Engagement. So that's a big project I've been working on, and I'm really excited about it. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy working with the kids. We just relaunched our Student CEO Club. We spent 15 months getting a Sigma Nu Tau Entrepreneurship Honor Society chapter installed in the program. So it's been a really cool few years. Our program has doubled size-wise in the last 3 years. Yeah, so we're really excited about that, and our enrollment is up again this semester, which is really cool, considering enrollment is stagnant or down with a lot of programs across the country. Even absolutely, we have some programs that are stagnant or a little bit down, but the entrepreneurship program continues to thrive and grow.
Well, I think that is so fascinating, and I can literally talk to you I can talk about, but I can definitely talk to you forever. But because we have so many different things in common, which is the car stuff, the video game stuff, the entrepreneur stuff, and I've got my questions here, but it's always organic with me and always goes where it goes. And you brought something up that I want to bring up first, and so I'm out of order here, but that's fine. You have been like a rocket ship at Sam Houston, right? I mean, I was looking through my messages, and I think it's like 3 years ago where I was finishing up my master's at Johns Hopkins, and I think we connected online and said, hey, let's talk about collaborating. And at that time, you were just an adjunct and probably maybe a part-time. And now all of a sudden you are directing this entire center for, as you say, a university that it surprised me. It's really big. I mean, what do you have? Like something like 30,000 students or something like that, right? I mean, it's pretty sizable.
I think Sam has about 20,000 students. So 20. It's a large state university. We're about 50 miles north of Houston. So It's kind of a cool mix. We're really close to where I live, which is the Woodlands, Texas, which is a very, very high developed, high socioeconomic ecosystem from an entrepreneurship and business standpoint. And then the majority of the service area around Sam is a little bit more small town rural, right?
Yes.
We get a lot of kids. 58% of our students are first time college students, which is really cool. But yeah, it's been a pretty fast ride. I have learned a couple of things. One, when you go to a meeting with the dean, expect to leave with more responsibility and more things on your plate. Because every time he asks me to come and sit and talk with them, I seem to leave there with a little bit more to do. But I
What's the
enjoyed it.
saying? The reward for good work is more work.
Yeah, I guess that's what you could say, and it's been fun. I mean, the university's really accepted me because I don't have a PhD, um,
Right. That's
and
where I
they
was going to
really,
go with that.
yeah, and all the faculty's really accepted me, and it's just I really enjoy it.
But see, I think, and this is what I think is, listen, I'm super impressed. I'm blown away. I love it. And this is one of the reasons why, one of the many reasons why I'm very interested in collaborating. It's because I think that for so many, so my brother-in-law, he was vice dean of finance. I don't know, some out of Cal State East Bay. I mean, I don't want to misspeak and get it wrong. And now he just decided he didn't want to do them and professor again. So I've been through that whole thing and the tenure track and all of this in terms of as a extended family. And I've always been blown away. Now you see some of it with law schools and business schools, but higher education typically has their way of doing things, the PhD thing and on and on and on. And, I'm pretty stacked up with degrees and have a terminal degree with the JD, but even I would have a hard time sort of navigating that. And I've had some conversations with people, and I just think that things are changing so dynamically that education, and we'll get into this, education is one of the industries that is getting disrupted, that needed to be disrupted. And someone like you, who has been so ridiculously successful in that area, right? I mean, you touched on Woodlands. I mean, Woodlands is massive, right? I mean, you had Mercedes of the Woodlands, the headquarters of Exxon's there. You have a lot of corporate headquarters there. It is one of the, probably the premier, or certainly one of the premier, with Sugar Land and Katy, suburbs around Houston. It is a big, big deal. And you were like, a major player in that area in your industry, in automotive, Mercedes. No question, everybody knows Mercedes of the Woodlands. And I just think that it's so cool that you got this going with Sam Houston, and obviously it is working phenomenally. I want to know I just feel like people like you have so much to give the students. I want to know about what the impact is with the students and what the reception has been and what you are doing that you think is working.
Well, I think, to your point, there has been quite a bit of transition in higher ed when it comes to what they accept.
Yes.
Probably 10 years ago, I wouldn't be a full-time instructor in this program, and certainly probably wouldn't be in a position to be the leader of the program. But, we're AA CSB certified, which is the highest certification a business school can have.
Correct.
And, one of the things that they really talked about when they came in for our recertification visit this last year was the fact that we do have people with experience teaching. If you look in our accounting program, we have people who have been CFOs and corporate controllers of Fortune 100 companies. We have law professors who teach in business law who have been, chief legal counsel for huge corporations, district attorneys, and people who have been like vice president of marketing for Procter and Gamble, and all kinds of different roles, right? I think when you make that transition and that connection to the student, the student get to connect with someone who's actually done what they're standing in the classroom talking about.
It's so important.
I'm not trying to say anything negative to a PhD. I actually started a PhD, but reached a point to where it didn't make sense for me to continue on the journey, right?
Right.
I mean, at my age, by the time I finished my PhD, spent 6 years on tenure track, I won't be teaching. My wife and I will either be living near a golf course or a beach, retired, right?
Right.
And, the dean and our chair had a really good conversation about that. And we all agreed that they didn't hire me to be a researcher. And a lot of PhD, the value and the direction of that term,
publish or perish,
is publish and research, right? And that's not what my role is at SAM. I think the students really accept me, because I'm a very organic instructor. While yet I have a class structure and a syllabus, we get everything done, but we can start a conversation on something in class, and we'll end up going in a direction that we never planned going. I tell my students that the cool thing about teaching business is you can earn an A through effort. For instance,
yes,
in an entrepreneurship startup class, if you go through the whole class and you master the mindset portion of it and all of the modeling portion, and you get to the end and you realize, man, I created a model for a business that doesn't make sense. That's just as valuable as the
Oh,
student who creates a model for a business that does make sense,
big,
right?
big time, big time.
Yeah,
In Silicon Valley, and I'm going to get the saying wrong, but we had a saying that, and it's not my saying, but you can't win until you failed.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. And you
and
learn, and
I
you
was going
learn
to say,
so much from it.
go ahead.
And I tell them, look, there's really only a couple of things in this class that have to be perfect. One, your ethics and business
Of,
ethics need to
of
be
course,
perfect.
of
And
course.
two, your numbers, your finances, have to be perfect. In
Yeah.
business, accounting has to be perfect. Those are really the only two things that have to be perfect. Everything else is really kind of, organic. You make mistakes, you learn from them, you try it again. And it's that type of thing I think the students really enjoy, right?
There's no question. And again, we love everybody. We love the PhDs, and there's big opportunities and a big place. Obviously, it's still even now, obviously the prime place for them in teaching. And I think there's schools like Chicago and a bunch of others that do incredible research work out there on the business side. But what I think that you brought up that is so valuable, Bob, and just so the viewers know, and my regular viewers know, I've got a 4.5-year-old here that but likes to be on camera, may pop in and out. So if I'm doing something that looks a little odd, I'm attending to my daughter, who may jump on camera. Now, what you brought up that is so important is I think there was a disconnect between the business community that were saying, hey, we need graduates that have skills that are relevant right now to these jobs, and that continues to evolve and change. So having practitioners in there that have the experience in business, entrepreneurship, corporate environment, particularly entrepreneurship, I think is highly relevant because you have some professors that are entrepreneurs, but I think those two worlds are a little bit different, right, in terms of risk tolerance and just all of that, but it just I haven't found anyway. I think it's very valuable. I think it's very valuable to have all of that in the mix in a business school. And the second thing is placement, because I think that sometimes you could go to a great program, but maybe there isn't the placement, particularly in entrepreneurship. So a lot of these top business schools are sending some of them half their classes to big consulting or big investment banking. Now, if that's not what you want to do, if you want to be an entrepreneur, it may be harder to get the placement. So having opportunities and exposure and internships and professors that are in the field, I think would be helpful to the students, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think some of the value that comes from it is, when you like, I tell my students life is entrepreneurship. Okay. If you
For
can
sure.
master the mindset skills of an entrepreneur, that growth mindset, being an entrepreneur is taking an idea, breaking it down, figuring out how to do something with it and capitalizing on it and turning it into a venture, right? Strategic thinking, problem solving. Those are skills that we use every day in life, whether it's as a student, in your personal life, or if you go to work for someone else. The other thing that we tell our students is that, you get an entrepreneurship degree doesn't mean you have to go be an entrepreneur. You can go
Absolutely.
use those skills working for a business, and you're probably going to be better prepared to integrate early into that business, because businesses today look for students that have versatile skill sets, that can strategic think and problem solve, can work in groups, can model, understand financial analysis, right? That's businesses want early employee engagement in those areas. And I think, the other thing is when you look at a typical textbook and it talks about, effectuation and mind mapping and different customer differentiation and stuff, it's one thing to talk about the theory of it in the book, but when I can stand in front of the class and say, hey, I've spent hours mind mapping with my teams on how to solve, customer touch point issues,
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
vehicle repair issues in the shop,
Oh my gosh.
process issues.
Yeah.
And then recently, with our virtual reality gaming business, when we were shut down during the pandemic, we used a lot of, my partners didn't realize it because, they don't really know the terms, but we used a lot of differentiation to come up with this model for our virtual STEAM learning program that we rolled out, and it's been quite successful for autistic children. And,
Wow.
that was basically just taking what we have and looking what we could do with it and identifying, how we would differentiate ourselves from other models out there. So when you can talk about doing it in real life and
Yes,
show
sir.
the results of it, right? I mean, I think that's something that students really grab onto. And not every student is going to launch the unicorn. Not every entrepreneur. As a matter of fact, I think unicorns are less than 3% of all new businesses that are started each year.
Right. And I've had that conversation here, and I've been trying, because everyone wants to be the next Silicon Valley or wants to beat Silicon Valley. And it's exactly they're called unicorns for a reason. They're very, very rare, but there's
Right.
so many other businesses and so many other opportunities. I don't say they didn't necessarily in a negative way. I think there's this ridiculously massive, we've talked about it offline, and that's part of why, some of the things that we're going to maybe look at, there's a insanely massive opportunity that I think so many people are missing at the academic level, at the elite professional services level, VC level, all of that type of stuff. And that's one of the things that, and I'll zip it, is I want you to finish your thought, but I want to talk about where Sam Houston's going and where the center is going, because I think that if you have the right model, there is insane levels of opportunity and impact that you can have in communities. So please continue.
Yeah, and I think, to that point, man, I could probably write down 50 friends of mine that are entrepreneurs who have businesses and have created, great lives for hundreds, thousands of employees, created great lives for them and their families. And, they probably can't even spell the word unicorn because their business is nowhere near being a unicorn, but they have hundreds of employees. They generate, several hundred million a year in revenue.
Wow.
They are hugely supportive and engaging in their communities. They understand that social responsibility factor for business, and they could care less about a unicorn.
Yeah, exactly. It's
No,
not a tech company. They don't need VC funding. They're not going public, but they're majorly impactful. But the teachings, the learnings, the things that you're doing there at the Entrepreneurship Center could really enhance those businesses or help do different spinoffs or have internal entrepreneurship, right? Entrepreneurship. There's all kinds of things they can learn and they could benefit from with what you're doing at the center.
Oh yeah, and as a matter of fact, one of the things, when the pandemic hit, I took one of my classes and we actually worked with a restaurant owner and helped him completely change his business model to not only survive during the pandemic, but actually operate quite successfully.
Wow.
And I'm actually presenting at a conference on that project next week. But, one of the things the students, their comments is, so this is what, owning a business is really like, because they got involved and they dealt with completely restructure. We were working with I got a person that owns some restaurants.
Yes, sir.
Menu changes, staffing changes, marketing changes, all of this differentiation of the model. And they were engaged in every piece of it.
Yep.
And so that was really practical, right?
Yep.
I could have, taken them through a book of how to do all that.
Exactly.
But when you're doing it live and you get to see results and measure results, that's quite impactful for students, right?
There's no question about it. In fact, I mean, I don't want to go into everything. What I'm looking, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do with John D. Villarreal Digital Ventures, that project, and we talked about that. And I just want to very briefly hit this. I'm looking right now at, a potential opportunity back in the car business that could be ridiculous money. Another automotive opportunity that's like an entrepreneurship thing, up north that could be insane money down the road, but it's a startup. I'm also looking at helping someone that has a yogurt shop. It has a bunch of them. There's all kinds. I mean, so and then some tech stuff, some stuff in that whole, super cutting edge tech stuff. I don't want to get too deep in that, but that's what I'm saying. Like, some of the most interesting stuff and maybe some of the most impactful stuff are non-tech, right? But they need the same things. They need the digital. They need the entrepreneurship mentality. All these things. So you are doing it there at Sam Houston. I think that's so important. And your background. I mean, it's just perfect timing. Tell me about. Give us a little more background on Sam Houston. So, what is the background of Sam Houston? talk about that whole Conroe, Huntsville, Woodland area, and where you're trying to go specifically with the Entrepreneurship Center and what your goals are, sir.
Yeah, so first of all, I'm a little sensitive about yogurt companies. I was nominated for Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, I think in 17, and I was a finalist and lost to a guy who has 5,000 yogurt shops.
Oh no!
So,
oh no! Understood. Okay, guys, duly noted.
Yeah, but I think one of the big things for the center to me is engagement in the community. And you and I've had this conversation, but
yes,
our social service system in this country is not sustainable. So how do we create this opportunity for kids who come to school and go back to small towns to go back and create small businesses, to address a couple of things within their communities, especially underserved communities, right? How do we show that there is opportunity for me that's outside of the circumstances I grow up in?
Yes.
Right? And the other thing is how do you address this defection rate within communities and small towns where the young people don't go back? Right?
Yep.
So how do we kind of work on those two things and combine them in a way to where we begin to go back and create economic stimulus within these underserved communities, these smaller rural towns, and we start small businesses there to support the local ecosystem, and then that continues to attract more development in the area, and you create a larger ecosystem as a whole, right?
And the flywheel effect then starts to take over.
Yeah, and so I think that's going to be one of the big things to focus on through the center is it's kind of going to be two-phased. If you hear somebody in the background, it's one of my dogs growling at me because they're hungry.
Oh, perfect! I love it. Well, so
go ahead.
And I'll just sharpen this a little bit now, because I love where you're going with this. Not every company can be a unicorn company. Not every student wants to, or maybe if they don't get a scholarship, could afford to go to a Stanford, a Harvard, or even a Berkeley if they're out of state, right? So what kind of student would you typically see at Sam Houston for the Entrepreneurship Center, and who would you say are your competitors? Where are you trying to go with this? Like right now you're at this level, but eventually you want to try to compete against UT Austin, Rice. I mean, those are heavyweights in that area. I mean, how do you tell me about some of that?
So, we sort of locally, U of H, A&M, they always have a top 20 entrepreneurship program. Most times they're both in the top 10.
Yep.
They've had their programs going on now for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And both of them have leaders within the programs that they're led by people who are not terminal, meaning they don't have a PhD. They're led by people who have gone out, they've been, owned their own businesses or been executives and partners, and then they've gone into academia, right? And so I've created relationships with both of those programs and the directors. And, some things we try to model similar to them, but we're not an A&M. We're not a large engineering school, right? We could probably model a little bit more of what University of Houston does. Okay. We also don't have the alumni that University of Houston has. I mean, they have an endowed program with tens of millions of dollars, and we don't quite have that type of alumni in our business school. We do in our ag program and in our accounting program, but we haven't quite developed. We have a lot of young, recent graduates in the last 7 to 10 years that are up and coming business owners, entrepreneurs, but we're not quite there yet, right?
Oh, yes, sir.
But I think, because we are a little bit more rural, we compete with A&M for students.
Yep.
We don't compete a lot with University of Houston because they compete more south of where we are, really, for local students.
Yep.
And being a state university, our tuition is a little bit more affordable. I'm not going to say it's affordable because I don't know that any tuition anymore is affordable for students.
It's gone up a lot.
A whole other conversation you could have about higher ed that we won't get into because that's a rabbit hole. I don't think even Alice in Wonderland would want to talk about. But so I think we tend to get the students that are trying to figure out really what their next phase of life is, right? We get a
Yes.
lot of those students, and when I first see them, they're juniors, and I
Okay.
do a lot of work with them on mindset. The first 3 weeks of my class is all about mindset, doing mindset profiles, understanding how that affects you, how you can manage it, and those things. And I begin to ask them to think about the future at that point. It's interesting to see the evolution in their thought process from when I begin to see them in our program as a junior to when they leave our program as a
That's
senior.
awesome.
They've gained
Yeah.
so much confidence. They have
Huge.
they have a very clear path to what their future looks like, whether it's going to work for a smaller, medium, or large size business. Some of them, do go start their own business. Some of them go home and work in the family business. Some of them go on to earn additional degrees. Since I've joined the program, I've actually mentored 7 students who have launched
Wow.
businesses that are still in business today. So they've
Yeah.
already defeated the 70% failure factor of startup businesses in the first year. And and we stay in touch. I'm always there for them. That's one of the things that, as this center develops, I want to bring these young people back and
Absolutely.
show our students that, look, you can take an idea that you work on as a project in class and actually go turn it into a business and support your family and contribute to the community, right?
There's no
So
question. There's no
one
question
piece
of.
for the center there. The other piece for the center is more internally in the campus. I really, and again, it's one of those things that's going to take time because we tend to live in silos sometimes.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh yes.
But there are some programs out there that have done a great job of really kind of spreading that entrepreneurial introduction and mindset cross campus, and that's what I want to
100%.
work on. I have a couple of programs that have really embraced the idea. I've worked with our fashion program, and the chair of that program, Kayla Tyner, and I have developed an entrepreneurship for fashion class that launches next fall.
Awesome. I love that.
I've been working with the dean of our Performing and Media Arts College on creating an introduction to entrepreneurship class for them. And I think slowly as they become advocates, it will allow us to expand. One of the things I think we could really do is we could create almost like a intro to entrepreneurship mindset class that you could launch, for freshmen, even if it's just a 1-hour course.
Sure.
That I think would benefit every student who comes to campus.
I love that. I love that idea. I've been preaching that kind of thing, but also more specifically on economics and finance. That's not required at any level in high school or even in college, and that affects everybody. I'm talking everything from personal finance to obviously how markets work, and that impacts all of us. This idea that you have of adding entrepreneurship to that is fantastic, Bob. I love that idea.
Yeah, I think the students would really value a lot from it. I think our programs could value a lot from it. But again, that's going to take a little bit of time because we tend to be very silo-ish and protective of our students because we don't want to risk one student leaving a program and joining another because we lose. That's how faculty is determined. And I get all that, right? So it's I don't mind letting other people believe the things that we're doing are their ideas as long as we can get my
so much
ideas
of it. My gosh,
infiltrated into it.
That's so much of it, Bob.
Yeah,
you're probably smarter than me on that. I tell you, it's so much of it.
Yeah.
Well, so this is super exciting. I know we're winding down here, and you're gracious with your time. I could go forever, but tell me, I love this collaboration. Everything you're saying is great. Tell me a couple things as we close here. I mean, I have one other question after this, but how has education changed, and where do you think it's going right now? How do you stay ahead of all these changes? Everything's been Zoom and virtual. Where do you think it goes from here?
Well, first of all, I see Zoom and remote and virtual as a positive to education.
100%.
And one of the reasons I say that, and maybe it's, from a business perspective, business has changed forever.
Yep.
businesses are no longer going to fly 70% of their employees all over the country to go to training, to go to conferences. They figured out this whole how Zoom or Teams works to have team meetings, right?
Yep.
So, tremendous amount of expense savings from that standpoint.
Yep.
When you think of training, the vast majority of training in the future is going to be virtual, right?
Yes.
There's some great companies out there that are creating actually virtual classrooms, where, even like, where you can go in and take anatomy in a live virtual classroom. You can, do an autopsy on a cadaver. You can take all of the organs out of it, enlarge them, look at them. You can even use it for doctors on rotations. You can pre-program symptoms and diseases in the bodies, so there are things like that are really going to be transcendent. Simulations are really changing, education. I use simulations in my business classes where they actually are either running a coffee shop or a bicycle shop, and, they have to build it from the ground up. Yeah. My students love it. It's scary to them when they first start out, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But at the end of the semester, they're like, man, this is the coolest thing I've ever done. We're seeing more and more simulation programs show up, and companies developing simulation programs. And the other thing is, today with students, college is expensive unless you go to an A&M or a Rice or a Stanford or a Hopkins or an MIT.
Yes, sir.
A lot of students have to work when they go to school.
Oh, yeah.
And so scheduling classes is challenging. So the ability to take more classes online is beneficial to them. It's been a challenge, but we're getting better at creating a very engaging environment for online students.
Yes, sir.
You can still incorporate, the simulations and the modeling and the things in to where they still get a very close experience to in-person instruction methods. I think that's a lot of the direction. I think there's a lot of looking at, do students really need all of the requirements we say they need?
Yes.
Do they need, 9 hours of humanities? And nothing against humanities. I love humanities. But I think you have to think about creating a more efficient path for students to earn a degree that is going to give them skills to be successful in life, right? Depending on what career they choose. So I think, there's going to be a lot of transition over the next 5 to 7 years in higher ed. And, plus the disruption of all of these universities now that are completing, you look at MIT, University of Chicago, Penn, right?
Wharton's doing a lot online. Yes.
Even at executive certificate level classes,
yes.
For over a 6-month period, you could get pretty much what you would get if you were taking an executive program over 2 years.
See, that's exactly it. I think you've hit on it. And it reminds me of, to some degree of what, sorry, I knew she was going to, of what happened in the car business and automotive when the internet hit, right? I mean, now all of a sudden I'm no longer dealing around my local area or I forget, you'll know the term. I'm forgetting the term, your market area. I'm competing nationwide on the used car market. Yeah. Especially when, Auto Trader, Cars.com, some of these things really started hitting up for some of those uniques, but certainly statewide in Texas for sure. We saw that just boom, it opened up almost immediately with the Metroplex between the 4 big ones, 4 big cities there. And now I think it's the same thing. You do have some branding issues in terms of, there's a lot of students, and listen, myself included, that you want that elite brand on your resume, but that's only part of it. Beyond that, it's how fast am I learning? What's the cost and what's the skill sets? What do I get out of it? And I think that creates a massive opportunity for institutions like Sam Houston. If you can get out in front of the game, all of a sudden now you have a global audience.
Yeah.
Right? If you can create something that people want, you have a global audience. So it gives you exactly what you said. It gives you access to a student that you maybe not have been able to reach before. That was like Hopkins was sort of they were ahead of the game on this, and you had a lot
Right.
of doctors that were still practicing. I know one of my classmates, or some other, I don't want to, but you had people that were still practicing around the country that were still, engaged there. But I think it also gives you access to professors and potentially instructors that are also outside the area. So if you can win the game, like we saw in automotive online, I think that gives you a major accelerant.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I think that transition is just going to continue to happen, um, and there's a lot of conversation about how do you bring more students from outside your area. Like for instance, I've received 2 emails in the past week from students that are going to be attending my classes this next semester. Who one of them lives in Africa and one of them lives in Europe.
Awesome.
Well,
I love that. I
love
that.
I don't even know if they're actually getting a full degree or what, but they've asked me for access to the resources already because one of them says we have a difficult time getting textbooks in my country. And I said, well, the good news is everything we use is an e-text, everything is online, so you don't have to worry about that, right?
That's it.
And I think that's another thing that's really, changed education is the fact that all of your resources can be online, mobile, wherever you are, that you have them available to you on your phone, your tablet, your laptop, your desktop, whatever it is. You can download, the PowerPoints, you can download the videos and everything. And it's kind of study at your own time now. It's very asynchronous.
It's correct.
Type of learning module now.
I love it. Last question. I know you have to go, and I've got a little one that's timing me out over here. She's fantastic. She loves to be on camera, but Texas, Florida and Texas have had a lot of people moving into them. And I think we don't need to get in this. That's a whole other conversation, but that's only accelerated. But your area in particular, like I think you were sharing with me, Conrail is like the fastest growing city in the country. I mean, what is going on in Texas and specifically around your area?
I think it's a couple of things. One, I think it's opportunity. The municipalities are really creating opportunities for businesses to move in. They're providing, incentives, and we have really strong workforce. We have strong work ethic here. We have Rice, University of Houston, A&M, UT, Sam Houston State, Lamar, all within like 50 miles of a hub, right? We have one of the largest medical centers in the world. We have one of the largest biotech research centers in the world. Of course, it's the headquarters for all of, the oil industry, the oil and gas, and everything that goes with that. So yeah,
that's awesome.
A great point to it.
One of my viewers here, and he's one of my subscribers, I believe, on my YouTube channel, chimed in here. Real quick question. Any insight the professor can share when his lectures are about mindset, books, YouTube videos? Maybe I think Ricky is asking for, do you have anything out there that people can kind of see and learn more about some of the things you're talking about?
Yeah. So Dr. Carol Dweck, Dweck, has done a lot of great research on growth mindset. If you just go to Google and type entrepreneurship mindset articles, there are some great articles written by entrepreneurs and people who study entrepreneurial mindsets. You've got Intentional Mindset by Dave Anderson. That's a great book. Man, you caught me off guard. There's James Clear has got some really good stuff on mindset. I'm trying to look at my bookcase over here and see. Gosh, there's a lot of good stuff. I tell you what. Can you hear me? Oh, I can't.
I muted because my daughter's. You can always, if you don't have anything right now, you can always email me and I can add something to the description later. But go ahead. I know you were saying.
I'll send you a list of some stuff.
Awesome, Bob. You were fantastic. I appreciate the time. This is really, one of the best interviews that I've done, honestly, in my opinion. And it's so important and so timely. I definitely appreciate it. I know for anyone out there, you can check out Bob on LinkedIn. You can check out, obviously my LinkedIn out there. I really appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your holidays. Have an awesome New Year's, and I know we'll be talking soon, Bob.
You too, John. Thank you, man.
Thank you, sir. Take
All
care.
right, bye.
Bye bye.